It's all about that warfare, boy. Back up. It's all about that warfare, boy. Take ground. My soldiers take ground till them stand down. Take ground. My soldiers take ground till them stand down. Take ground. Nah, this ain't no movement, this a takedown. We will not be moved or intimidated. We ain't the type. You got a problem? Tell them cross the fucking line. My niggas ain't polite. Soldiers to the left and right. I die for every man body. Before I be a coward, I'd rather be a dead body. This will be my kingdom when the hour pass. You can either get with it or get flipped like an hourglass. We live by honor and no excuse. Just sit the prayer up to the Lord. I told him, then let all the terrorists loose. Hold your tongue or get rebuked, cause you made a truce. With a race to make merchandise out of my abuse. Scared of who? You got your gun, then pull it. Me and my niggas start to argue, it's about who gon' bite the bullet. It gon' take round. Opponents better move slow. Attack dog for this truth, nigga, cool zone. Go to ground. It's all about that warfare, boy. Back up. It's all about that warfare, boy. Take ground. My soldiers take ground till them stand down. Take ground. My soldiers take ground till them stand down. Oh, thought you could cross us with no consequence, but you will pay dearly. You should've used your common sense. My zeal lit, that means you could never prevail. Hey, with a true sit, hey, with warriors 12. Be wise with them weapons, cause I promise. My nine just like my wife, she concealed, she modest. I know 2 things, a robber will not prosper. And any man harm me and my octave gon' meet the doctor. Cause this life is warfare, it's not an easy walk. Been watching my people die so you can miss me with that love talk. My UPK soldiers, any man try to cross your path, make him regret it. What that means? Fall on his age. Comparing me to you really ain't no contest. Long live one west. Say what? Long live one west. This for those who thinking we ain't ready for. Tell them back up, I'm about to drop something heavy for. Go to ground. It's all about that warfare, boy. Back up. It's all about that warfare, boy. Take ground. My soldiers take ground till them stand down. Take ground. My soldiers take ground till them stand down.
Till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the death till they bury me. One west till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the death till they bury me. I be one west to the death till they bury me. They ain't scaring me. Rip the soul out of Pharisee. Speaking heresy and get you fucked up apparently. It's like they daring me. I said chill, they ain't hearing me. They ain't listening. Every bar nitroglycerin. Hit your heart, bring it back to start, make you
Shalom, Baltimore. This is Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Started out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York. We are under commanding General Yohana. And I want to say, if you're not in ISUPK, you're not in the truth. Let me say that again. If you're not in ISUPK, you're not in the truth. There's only one body. If you're not in here, you're not a part of that body. So let's make no mistake about it. I want to say, Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shabbat to all my brothers. Yahweh Shema Shem Yahweh Shah to all the sisters out there. It's Tuesday night Brotherhood class. Priest and officer 500 now war. And what I wanted to bring out tonight regarding Brotherhood, as always, I like to, go through the current events, and because I see a lot of things that plague our people, these curses plaguing our people, whereas if we follow these laws, statutes, commandments, and have brotherhood amongst ourselves, we probably wouldn't suffer these judgments the way we do. Right. And one of the things is, when the oppressor, got just a tad bit, a taste, just a glimpse of what we go through on a daily basis, they wanted to rush the Capitol. They wanted to, take it down. Throw Biden out. We're gonna put Trump back in. I mean, just to show you, the type of mindset that this oppressor has. Well, anyway, a lot of people were arrested. Somebody was even murdered. A Capitol officer lost his life. And just to show you that, you can't, there's no such thing as equal justice when it comes to this monster. Because you and I both know that if you're even in the vicinity of somebody who knows you that committed a crime, and that crime resulted in murder, whether you had knowledge of it or not, whether you actually pulled the trigger, or whether you actually participated actively or firsthand with the actual taking of the life, they're still going to charge you as though you pulled the trigger yourself. You are going to do some serious time, whether, whatever the circumstances were, because you were in the commission of a crime that resulted in the death of another person, let alone a Capitol officer, a police officer. I think you might even be eligible for the death penalty, for that, because it's a federal officer. But for some odd reason, all of that sort of seems to, fade away when it comes to, this particular oppressor giving, justice to himself or to his own. Like I said, Christ said, the devils can't cast out devils. A house divided against himself cannot stand. So we shouldn't be surprised. Right. Well, in that, I came across a particular article, because a particular, if you've seen the video, there was a brother who was, unfortunately, he was there to try to defend and fight off the rioters at the White House, and he's waving the baton while he's backing up. Well, his testimony in trial came up, and he's giving his testimony as to what happened. And you see the video, the brother looks dejected, he looks hurt, confused, because, our people truly believe that they are part of this system of things. They're truly American. And if they just, work hard and get a good education and pull yourself up by your bootstrap, that somehow America will accept you as one of their own. And it's always a shocking revelation when they come to find out that, no, they still look at you as a slave. Right. As a slave. Make no doubt about it. And that's why the scriptures say that we are to be separate unto God himself. We are holy people. And it's a reason for that. Even if you don't readily see it for yourself, you have to trust that the Father knows better than you. Just like there was a time where you didn't understand all your parents' rules, but because they were your parents and responsible for your well-being, you took heed. You take heed because you trust in what they say is correct and it's for your protection. Well, this is no different. The Most High has a whole book of scriptures and guidance and laws, statutes, commandments that was given to us, that how we're supposed to conduct ourselves and live our lives. And part of that is being separated from your enemy. And there's no ifs, ands, buts about it. The Most High definitely knows what he's talking about more so than you. So to be separate away from this animal, this oppressor, this beast, can only bring about unity amongst our own.
Right.
To practice true brotherhood, the love that you're trying to give to this oppressor, you need to give it to your brother. That brother who's downtrodden in the streets because this whole system is beating us down. Poorly educated, miseducated, locked away in prison, and then thrown to the streets like garbage. So many of our people find themselves in these conditions, in these situations. Who needs more love than your brother? Hispanic tribes, Mexicans, down on the border in dog cages,
Right.
being treated like other animals, being made to drink out of the toilets for water. I know you've seen the pictures of women having to suckle their children through the fences, through the chain link fences.
Right.
And what type of animal does that? It has no compassion whatsoever. So for us to put our trust in this particular enemy for justice, for salvation, or for any type of righteous or equality in the justice system is folly. It's silly. Almost, I would say, insane. Because you would have to be out of your mind to think that the very people who are actively trying to kill you, now it might not be outright, they're not saying line up all the Negroes, all the wetbacks, they're not saying line them up and shoot them on the wall. No, you got to remember, this is the most subtle beast of the field. And that's not to say that the other beasts weren't subtle as well, because they don't mean you any good either. This is just the most subtle beast of the field. The wording is just, so intricate, so beautifully spoken. He is the most subtle beast of the field. That means that the others were subtle too, in their guile and their trickery in playing a part in your destruction. But remember, they are confederate against you, meaning they're joined together to try to take you out.
Right.
But the most subtle, Most High wanted to point that out, the most subtle beast of the field was this particular serpent. This low down, dirty serpent, your enemy, the one who is now ruling over us. And so unfortunately, we had this brother in the Capitol who finds himself trying to defend the nation's capital against other oppressors who had a grievance against their people in charge, and we find ourselves caught in the middle. Sort of like the Civil War all over again. And that we weren't the focus of the Civil War, because if you listen to Abraham Lincoln, he said if I could join, his whole point was to join the Union together, keep the Union as a country, because he know that foreign enemies will be more likely to come and destroy this budding America if they were split apart. So you needed North and the South to come together as a whole. He said if I could free all the slaves, I would do it. Or if I could just keep slavery as an institution, I would do it. Meaning he was, at very best, he was indifferent. I would say he didn't give a damn about any, slave or indigenous or the First Nations whatsoever. But at the very best, you could say he was indifferent. But anyway, back to this officer. I was going across this article, and I wanted to share that here tonight about the revelation that this brother, came into when he discovered that the oppressor really didn't have any cares about him or who he was, or whether he was a voting American or the fact that he was an officer of the law. They didn't respect any of that. And this article is going to show what the oppressor really thought about him. Given his position, his education, none of that mattered. Let me get that article.
Capitol Police officer says January 6th rioters used N-words against him and others. U.S. Capitol Police officer Harry Dunn testified Tuesday that he and other black officers faced racial slurs during the January 6th Capitol insurrection.
All right, so during this insurrection, you know, they trying to hold the crowds back, you know, trying to do that what they paid them to do, trying to defend this oppressor's capital, and you have the insurrection or the rioters coming in, trying to, you know, basically overthrow the government to take over the seat of power, which is the White House. And they're letting them know, calling them, you know, in the word this and in word that, and they like surprised, like, you know, they can't believe it. So I mean, so again, he's shocked because he think, hey, you know, I'm working at the White House, you know, I pay my taxes, I vote, and you know, I got, you know, oppressors as my friends. We work together on the job. I'm one of you, and here they come to let you know truly what the reality is. You get some more on that?
Gunn said his experience, Gunn said he experienced a torrent of racial abuse after he exchanged words with rioters who were degenerating Joe Biden, then the president-elect, and the people who voted for him during the 2020 election. Gunn said he was called the N-word after he felt prompted to tell the mob he had voted for Biden.
I don't know whether he thought to antagonize the crowd, because you know majority of them were Trump supporters, or he thought that would gain him some sympathy. I guess honestly, it wouldn't have mattered who he voted for either way. Go ahead.
I do my best to keep politics out of my job, but in this circumstance, I responded, well, I voted for Joe Biden. Does my vote not count? Am I nobody? Gunn said during the first day of the House's Select Committee hearing on the event surrounding January 6th. Gunn said that prompted a woman in a pink MAGA shirt to call out the others in the mob of former President Donald Trump supporters to hurl abuse at Gunn, including repeated use of the hateful slur. You hear that, guys? This N voted for Joe Biden. Gunn recalled the woman saying, using the full word himself to emphasize the point. No one had ever called me a N while wearing the uniform of a Capitol Police officer, Dunn said.
So right here, he's in shock. So he figured this, because he had on the uniform of a Capitol Police officer given to him by the oppressor, like that somehow would garner him the respect of this devil. Somehow that would, you know, they may say it behind my back, but they would never say it in my face while I'm in uniform. And right here, he's faced with the reality of how that does not matter. There's not enough education that you can get. There's no job out there that you can find. There's no the palest oppressor's woman that you could find to marry. It still will not matter. And why? Because this oppressor is your enemy. Is your enemy. So what does the Bible say about your enemy? Let me get Ecclesiasticus chapter 12, and we're going to start at 10.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 12, verse 10. Never trust thine enemy.
We'll say that again.
Never trust thine enemy.
Now this is coming out of the Bible. You know, the same book they said is all love, flowers, rainbow, sunshine, and kisses. It's telling you that you have enemies out there. That means you have people that mean you no good. You have people that want to do you harm. And so the Bible is giving you some wisdom here, saying, never put your trust in your enemy. Go ahead.
For like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness.
So like as iron rust. So the natural properties of iron, meaning that it's in its nature, if left to its natural, in its natural element, it will eventually succumb to rust, because that's just the natural property of the metal when it's exposed to the elements. So right here, you have this oppressor. If left to his own devices in his natural element, he's going to let you know just what he thinks about you. He's going to holler out the N word, or let you know that you're nothing to him. He's going to let you know that no, you're not an American. No, you have no rights. The only rights that you have are the rights that we gracefully let you think that you have, up until you don't. I mean, how many times if you had a chance to watch on YouTube, you'll find some brother out there getting pulled over by an officer talking about all these rights that they supposedly have. You know, it's my right. I don't have to do this. Especially those Moorish brothers. I don't know if you ever had them catch one of them videos where they holler about I'm a sovereign citizen while they getting yanked out and stomped on the concrete.
Right.
Talking about I got rights, or I'm a sovereign citizen, or whatever the heck that means. Going to jail just like everybody else. It does not matter. And so the Bible here is telling you never to trust your enemy, because it's like it's iron rusted, like it's the natural property of iron. So is his wickedness. That means he cannot help it. It is in his nature.
Right.
It's like telling a dog not to bark, a snake not to hiss. It is his natural, it is who he is to be wicked. And if you put your trust in this enemy, then truly you're going to befall victim when he truly shows you how wicked he truly is. And that's what this brother's finding out right now, to his surprise, just how wicked this oppressor can be. Is there any more now? Go ahead.
He said he was not alone in experiencing racist epithets during January 6th, and that in the aftermath of that day, other officers shared similar stories of their confrontations with the pro-Trump mob.
All right, so it's not just one officer, but so now you have other officers, other black officers, who are also succumbing or being treated in the same fashion. So right now, you have the oppressor who's also wearing the same uniform, and then you got the so-called blacks in the uniform as well. And right now they're drawing a distinction. They're being separated. Whereas though if we obey the Most High and not put ourselves in that situation to begin with, then you wouldn't have to, you would avoid that judgment. You would avoid that by not putting your trust in this particular enemy. Just to have him now, you're faced with a riotous mob intent on harming anyone in their path, just so they can try to fight for their particular seat of power.
Right.
And you're in the way of that. Just like, so basically, they say when you keep repeating the same thing over and over again, expect a different result. That's the very definition of being insane, being crazy. So right before, we know that there was a civil war between the North and the South, and of this oppressor when they fighting or vying for power. So now you have the same mechanism again. You have two different factions of oppressors fighting for power. And essentially, that's what the voting system is. It's the oppressor vying for power within their own kingdom. Now, the voting system is supposed to be a way where they don't murder each other, but can still sort of go back and forth and decide who's going to be in charge without burning the whole place down. But again, it's in his nature. So this thing where they come at each other's throats It's going to continue to happen because it's in his nature. So what you have to do as an Israelite, as a prince of the power, when you come into this knowledge, you have to separate yourself. Separate yourself from this enemy and be a brother to your brother. Give that protection. So what he should have been doing is protecting his own people, protecting his family, his loved ones, his brother, instead of using his strength or his power or whatever methods that he has to secure safety. Use that to protect your own, not give it to the oppressor who doesn't appreciate it anyway. And they showed you that when they ran up in the White House. They let him know straight off the bat what they thought about him. And then there's always, that dog. The oppressor's a guard dog who is the catalyst for a lot of this stuff. Be it from going all the way back to Emmett Till to Rosewood, even up to now, the Botham John murdered in his own apartment, eating a bowl of ice cream. So you're not even safe at home. Your home is supposed to be your sanctuary. Well, right here, they let you know that no, you're not. If I don't like you, then I'll even come into your own abode and I will take your life.
Right.
And then have people feeling sorry for her. You done murdered this man who posed no threat, did not come at you in any sort of way, but yet you felt justified to walk in his home and take his life simply because she could. Simply because he could. Now, the brother looked like he, made some good money and wanted to, like we all do, we want to live in a nice, safe environment, we're away from the, the crime and the drugs and the shooting. But I would dare say that brother probably would be still alive if he lived in the hood. And that's the sad thing, is that, you think you're fleeing to safety by living amongst the oppressor, and you're truly not, because they hate your guts. And if an opportunity arises where they can make a judgment call, where it's up to their discretion of whether you live or die, as you can see on the news, in all likelihood, they are going to choose death, even if they're on camera while it's happening. That's how bold they are. That's how little your life means. That even on camera, in front of the whole world, if they have a choice where they're in power, and it's a choice between your life, letting you live and die, they're choosing death. They're choosing to execute you. Look no further than Brother George Floyd, pleading for his life, and that devil still chose to execute that man in front of the whole world. And then having the nerve to plead, well, I'm not guilty or whatever. That's just part of my job. And that's why a lot of these dogs choose that profession, just so they can have that power over you, that power to take your life. But let me pick up that article. I'm gonna try to finish that off.
One officer told me he had never in his entire 40 years life being called an end to his face, and that streak ended on January 6th. Yet another black officer later told me he had been confronted by insurrectionists in the Capitol who told him, put your gun down and we'll show you what kind of end you really are.
All right. Go back, rewind that, but say that again. But they told put the gun down and what?
He said, put your gun down and we'll show you what kind of end you really are.
So right here, he's armed, charged with protecting life and property in the White House, their particular capital, which they're supposed to have reverence and respect for. So you would think they would show a little bit of honor or a little bit of decorum to the man who's dedicated his life to protecting their capital. And right here, they're showing you that that means nothing. Put down the gun and we'll show you, you know, what type of, you know, N-word you really are. Right. So that just goes to show you that it's not even about, you know, your employment or that you're so quote unquote an American upholding American law. That he's supposed to be fellow Americans, you know, going to murder or, because, you know, really they were low-key threatening his life. I don't even think they was low-key about it. I think they were matter of fact about it. Right. You know, considering that somebody did lose their life that particular day. So you really can't, you know, say it's beyond the realm of possibility that they would have murdered that man. And he would have lost his life for what? Protecting the White House? And even still now, the fact that he's looking for any type of justice is almost a joke. The fact that they even got bail was a joke. The fact that they even was able to rush the Capitol is a joke. Because if I remember, Miriam Carey was a woman with her infant child in the back car, roll up to a White House gate, I believe, it was a few years back, and an oppressor really didn't identify himself, walked up to her car, and she was startled. I don't know who you are or who this man is. It turned out to be another Capitol officer, an oppressor, and she got startled and tried to drive away from the White House, to get away from this man. You know, you got your child in the back. She's a woman alone by herself. She's obviously, you know, confused or lost, and she's just trying to get away. They shot at this woman 26 times. She caught a couple in her side, and they put one in her head in front of her infant in the car. It's only due to the Most High that the infant wasn't murdered as well. But it's not like, you know, they really care about that either. You only need to look to Planned Parenthood to know how they feel, how the oppressor feels about your children. Right. All right. So, you know, you draw the parallel. She's not storming the White House. She's driving away from the White House, trying to get away. They tracked this woman down and sent 26 hail of bullets in her direction, and one to the head, just to, for good measure. And you can still find that article if you want to go back and look at it yourself. Miriam Carey was her name. So you see the compare and contrast where they're willing to shoot a woman with an infant in the car trying to get away from the White House, as opposed to these insurrectionists or these rioters and these devils murder somebody, and somehow they just, you know, they just go to prison and get bail. And they're wondering why we can't get justice from the very people who you mean so little to. Your life means nothing to them. Yeah. I mean, so how many times do they have to continuously show us? How many more people have to be murdered senselessly, I should say, before the eyes of the world, in some cases. Let me pick up the rest of it.
Dunn said after that word was used against him, the rest of the afternoon is a blur. But he and other officers are still living with the trauma they experienced. He said he has also sought counseling in the aftermath of that day and encouraged other officers to do so as well.
So this man now, you know, that whole changed his whole mindset. The incident, got him so shook up now. He has to get counseling to talk him through what happened. Because he's under the impression that we're all American.
Right.
That we all can get along. That, we're all, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Right.
With liberty and justice for everybody. He truly believes that in his heart. A Capitol Police officer. I mean, that's the epitome of loving America. You willing to put your life on the line to protect life and limb in the White House. And your allegiance should be to Christ and your brothers, not to the very people who are trying to actively murder you, who have enslaved you. Now, I know a lot of people argue about the slave thing, but let's just clear that up. If you just go to Merriam-Webster, go to Google, type in MW, bring up Merriam-Webster, and we're gonna make this real simple. You type up the word slave, and of course, words have many definitions, and you would have to, break it down to understand what I'm saying. So we're gonna make it real simple. Keep scrolling all the way down until you get to the kids' definition. The kids' definition. You can pull it up now if you want. No. Actually, I'll do it. You know what? I'll just. All right. So you go to Merriam-Webster and type in the word slave. All right. So you scroll all the way down, and the definition that you want is the kids' definition, and I'm going to read it. Slave, it's a noun. The kids' definition of slave. A person who is owned by another person. We know that. That's the classic definition. But here are how we're existing right now. A person who is strongly influenced and controlled by something. So the influence that we have, so when you celebrate the 4th of July, the independence of America, when your people were slaves, when your people were in the cotton fields, you weren't independent. What are you celebrating for? You're being controlled by that influence because America said that, hey, this is what we do. We celebrate our independence, and you better get up and dance and jump too, like these fireworks. Right. And somehow you're celebrating what? You're celebrating what? And then you move on, and then you off for Labor Day. You want to have a cookout. Well, we were in the fields for 400 something years, and most people now still working 2 jobs just to get by. Now, if you are fortunate enough just to have a single job and you're able to scrape by, the government's still taking darn near half of that in taxes. Scriptures say they only want 10%. This oppressor say, nah. You come up off some more of that. So you're celebrating, what are you celebrating on that day? Why you got hot dogs and hamburgers on the grill for that day? And then you come around to Halloween. You got your kids dressed up in that crap. What are you celebrating with that? What are you passing on to your kids dressing up like ghouls and goblins? Celebrating the Samhain. Got nothing to do with the Most High. And some of these people calling themselves Christians celebrating Halloween. I don't know how. I don't find that one in the scriptures. I don't see that in the Bible. So clearly, you're in subjection to another influence, not the influence of this Bible, not the words of the Most High. So because America says this is what we doing, you join right in. So by definition, you are still a slave. Then you go from Halloween, then you go to Thanksgiving. So this oppressor had to rob and kill and murder for this land. over 77 million Native Americans. Still murder them now, if the truth be told. And just up in Canada, it was at one of those boarding schools where they found a mass grave of Native Americans, just the bones. So when we say the third one, they still find them. So when we say that this oppressor, you're walking on the bones of our brothers, of our Native American brothers, or this land was built on the blood and bones of our people, that's literal. And you're celebrating Thanksgiving for what? Because this oppressor said this is what we do, giving thanks. They're giving thanks because they slaughtered a whole multitude of people. That's what they're celebrating. Is that what you want to celebrate too? Despite the modern day spin they put on it, that's the origin of this celebration that you're putting yourself in. So you're still a slave. You're still in subjection to this influence. Then you move past that and you go right on to Christmas. Now, and what makes it even more repugnant is that you put Yahweh's name on what the world calls Jesus Christ. You want to put his name on it, which makes it even more blasphemous than what it already is. So what are you celebrating with that? Putting yourself in debt to put gifts under a tree, which is clearly has nothing to do with God, has nothing to do with the Most High, has nothing to do with our King. But if the oppressor tells you this is what we're doing and this is what it means, it's the season to be, jolly. It's the season of giving. So you run out, you get your tree, you decorate it, down there setting the house on fire. Doesn't matter because it's for the kids, because that's what the oppressor told you. While everything, you can quickly go on the internet and you can see the origin of Christmas and you see that this has nothing to do with God. It's one of the most ungodly celebrations that you could possibly do. What? Because you don't want to listen to the Most High? You want to follow the oppressor? Put yourself in subjection to that greater influence, because you can't go home and tell the kids they not getting enough for Christmas. You can't tell your lady, we're not celebrating Christmas this year. You won't come home without that Christmas tree and them gifts. You might not have a home to come to. And then you roll around the New Year's. Gotta have your champagne, more fireworks, midnight countdown, you partying. Why? Because the oppressor told you to. Self-worshiping idols and gods that you probably don't even know. And what's worse, if you do know, you're doing it anyway. Why? Because it's the American way. And the oppressor told you to. More people get murdered to start off the new year than I care to count. But we do it anyway. Why? Because you're in subjection to that greater influence, which is America. So by definition, you're still a slave. By definition. So, how you free yourself is coming back to these laws, statutes, and commandments. By learning what true brotherhood is. By being a true follower of Christ. Not according to what America told you it is, but actually according to the scriptures. But you have to first be taught again. And how do you be taught? You start off, you go to isupk.com and you contact the nearest camp in your city. That's where you're going to start. Are we finished that article? We got a little bit more. Go ahead.
I know so many other officers continue to hurt both physically and emotionally, he said. What we went through that day was traumatic. As by Representative Adam Schiff, if he believed the attack reflected America, Dunn said black officers believe we fought a different battle. I guess it is America. He said it shouldn't be, but I guess that's the way that things are. It's not the side of America that I like. It's not the side that any of us here represent. We represent the good side of America.
Now, I'd like to know, it sounds like he's saying he want to make America great again. It seems like what he alluded to, but I'm trying to figure out what side, what good side he's talking about. Because it definitely wasn't good for us or our people. Now, our people, and because we, being the salt of the earth type people that we are, we'll try to make the best out of a bad situation, but that doesn't make it good or, a better time. This brother's clearly delusional, because you can go out through the whole history of this country, and I'm trying to find out when we ever, got a good fair shake. Well, because they, gave you Juneteenth or something. Somehow we suppose that doesn't. How is that building up any type of economic wealth for us as a people? Or how does it help you get a better education for your children so they understand who they are and take pride in who they are? Right. They'll teach you all about who the oppressor is, so you can have reverence and, look at him in high regard for his accomplishments, so you can, celebrate 4th of July just a little bit harder because of, the founding fathers and what they went through to build the country. They want you to have reverence for that, but not for yourself. So they'll educate you as far as that goes, but they won't let you build anything for yourself. Yes, on that? Go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
Officer Daniel Hodges, who also testified at Tuesday's hearing, said that the mob was overwhelmingly white and male. Hodges, who is white, testified that he did not encounter any racial abuse that day. Instead, several rioters tried to recruit him to their violent cause. One came and said, "Are you my brother?" Hodges said.
Exactly.
They don't say what he gave the answer he gave.
Of course not. Of course not.
He said, "Yes, I am your brother."
So right here, you have the officers, all of them Capitol Police officers in uniform. You have the black officers, and then you have the oppressors. So right there, that goes to show you when the chaos is ensuing, when the lines are drawn, all that, we brothers in blue stuff go out the window. It's about nation. So how about you fight for your nation right now? How about you come back and become and make your nation stronger based on what the Most High said? So when these things sort of happen, you don't have to worry. So now this brother's in counseling because his feelings hurt. Is it at the end or is it God? That was it. So now it took all that for him to actually see where his situation or his position in America truly was. It almost cost him his life. Because as they told him, you put that gun down and we really gonna show you. We're really gonna show you. And they, of course, kind of hard to get the context from the article, but they sound a little bit gleeful about that. I can just, sort of imagine. But let me pick back up at Ecclesiasticus chapter 12, verse 10. Read that again.
Never trust thine enemies. Ecclesiasticus chapter 12, verse 10. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusted, so is his wickedness.
So those other officers, the oppressors, his brothers in blue, they didn't band together. I didn't hear about them coming together as a force to defend the Capitol and defend each other. I didn't read it. I didn't hear about that part. I heard about how, and you've heard the reports how some of the officers actually let them through and, might even joined in or, whatever the case may be. Well, what we can certainly say based on this article is that they were definitely, they all didn't receive the same treatment. Where one, they was ready to take his life, and then the other officer, they were trying to recruit him to their cause because they feel like they were brothers, is what the article said. They didn't look at him as like opposition or the enemy. They looked at them like, like they're brothers. But they recognize you as their enemy. So the question is, when are we gonna wake up? How many more of our people have to be murdered before we realize that we're being exterminated? And there's nothing wrong, it's not evil or it's not racist to point out when somebody is systematically trying to murder you or your people. So if I point out Planned Parenthood and I notice that they are more aggressive and more numerous in areas of blacks and Hispanics. If I notice that and I point that out, well, why is that? Why is that? And then you look at the history of it and its founding, and you come to find out that the whole purpose of the institution was to murder you and people like you, and it's still being funded by the very government that's supposed to protect you, when they know the origin and purpose of this organization, but yet they still make sure it's up and running, well, what other conclusion can you draw? But these people are your enemy. Where you fast forward here in 2021, and they say that the prisons are so overcrowded that you have more blacks and Hispanics in prison now than you had slaves on the plantation, where you have to be in further subjection and servitude, having somebody to tell you when to get up, when to go to sleep, when to shower, when is rec time, or just in total control of everything you do. And then once they've used you up for, working for 10 or 15 cents a day or whatever the menial wages are, once they've used you up, if you're still alive, then they can put you back on the street when you're no longer when you're no longer productive, basically. Then they, get rid of you. So basically, they found another way to sort of backhanded way of instituting slavery, pretty much. So this is what they've done. So on top of that, it's no coincidence that everywhere where you see black people en masse in our neighborhoods, that the educational system is cracked. Because the education system was not designed, if you look at the curriculum alone, even if you were a straight A student, you're still going to come out deficient in most public schools. Not all, but I would dare say the majority. If you look at the curriculum of what you were a straight A student and graduated, just based on the curriculum of that particular school system alone, you're still going to be deficient. Right. So it's not really designed for you to come out and uplift yourself and the people around you. Now our people, being who we are, you love to read, you love the education, you really want to do well, we most likely excel because we're doing work outside of the school, basically. You're reading on your own, which is what we have to do. But that has to be instilled in us to know what we should be learning. And it starts off with the true knowledge of yourself. We are the true biblical Israelites. You know what type of pride that would instill in the child, to know that the greatest black man to ever walk the earth, Yahweh Mashiach, what the world calls Jesus Christ, looked just like you, had hair just like you, had feet that looked just like you. And if you have the desire and will, you can walk just like he walked. And imagine a whole nation walking that same path. This is what they truly feel. You're talking about one body under Christ, under the Most High. That type of pride, that type of just honor and reverence for the Most High would truly be reflected in everything we do, which is what the Most High, set out for us. Let me pick up on that. Go ahead.
Ecclesiasticus, chapter 12, verse 13. Who will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent?
Exactly. So, right here, it's like when you join yourself to this particular oppressor, and then they turn on you and say, hey, you put that gun down, we really going to show you where the end is. Who can pity you? Who can pity you at that point? So right here, the scripture is telling you, never trust your enemy. Go ahead.
Because he gets shocked. He went in the shock when he heard the N word, and when the dude don't put down the gun, he will show you who you really are.
Exactly.
But just like you said earlier, who can really have pity on you when you already know how these people are? We tend to put blinders on and act like we don't see the real them. We get to working next to them and we think, oh, they're going to treat us differently because we got this blue uniform.
Exactly.
That, just like like I said at the end of the article that you just had to read from, he didn't experience the same racism. And then the rioters asked him, are you my brother?
Ask that, so they look.
He never said what his answer was. You understand?
I don't think we need to print
so
that
he
part.
don't get his butt kicked. Yeah, I'm your brother. That's what he told them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So who can pity your charm? Just like you said.
Exactly. And I think that just sort of sums it up beautifully.
Right.
So we need not find ourselves in situations such as that if we heed to the scriptures from jump. Because we don't know who the enemy is. And you won't find yourself in counseling because you're in shock because you didn't get the same treatment as the other guy in blue.
Right.
Because you thinking that we all the same for the same cause. No, his cause is for the uplift the kingdom of his people.
Right.
That's what his agenda is. So the question is, what's your agenda? You trying to uplift the oppressor's kingdom? Or is your agenda the salvation of your people, like Christ said? So, what does it truly mean? Nobody can pity, because the scriptures told you quite flat who the enemy is. So you should never be in shock as to what happened. Let me get the 16. Drop down to 16. Read that for me.
Ecclesiasticus, chapter 12, verse 16. An enemy speaks sweetly with his lips, but in his heart he imagineth how to throw thee into a pit.
Now this guy says that in all his 40 years of serving as an officer, he's never heard anybody call him the N-word while he's in uniform, in his face. Now, he worked with these people all the time. So I'm quite sure they, probably having lunch or, talking about, sports or, what's going on down the street, or, what him and the wife doing. They just having casual conversation. Because he's been on job for 40 years. So I'm quite sure they have some sort of relationship. You can't spend 40 years on the job and, not have some sort of interaction with these people. And, so much to the point now where he's so much in shock that he can't believe what he requires counseling. That means there's a conflict in his mind because he was thinking and living one way and it didn't mesh well with the reality of the situation, and in his mind having trouble making sense of it. It's called cognitive dissonance. if y'all want to take the time to look it up. I'll have enough time tonight, maybe we'll go to that another time, but basically is that the thoughts in your mind doesn't mesh with the reality. So the reality is that no, you're not a mind. The reality is that no, you don't have the rights and privileges of a mind.
Right, how about that?
Yeah. So when that reality hits, now the brothers in counseling, where the scriptures say never trust your enemy. And it makes clear of who your enemy are, or who your enemy is. Well, let me, it's a classic bedrock UPK scripture, and everybody knows Deuteronomy 28. You know the one I want. It tells you quite plainly who the enemy is. All right. Yep. Go all the way down to, 68, all the way down to there. Go ahead.
Deuteronomy 28
and 68.
and 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
Okay, so the Most High, for our wickedness, our disobedience, He's going to bring us into Egypt again with ships. Now, one thing, if you know anything about the Middle East, you wouldn't travel to Egypt by ship. So clearly, that's not what the Most High is talking about. Egypt, in this sense, is a Greek word, from a Greek word, Egyptos, which means bondage. So what he's saying, he's going to put you in bondage again by way of ship. Now, we know on this particular planet, there's only a small select group of people who were brought to bondage by way of ships. And blacks and Hispanics would definitely fit that particular curse. So go ahead.
By way thereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto you.
You stop right there and say, we're talking about Israel. And it's not that little, tiny speck that you see over there now that they calling Israel, but it was more expansive than that. If you have to go back and get one of those old biblical maps where you can see the full breadth of what Israel encompassed, or at least the territorial land. But we have not seen that anymore again. It doesn't mean you can't travel to the Middle East and see the actual land, but our people don't control that. And it's sure not your homeland, because somebody else, imposters, are controlling that right now. So your homeland, you haven't seen anymore. Go ahead.
Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemy.
Okay, we say that. Read that again. You'll be sold who?
And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies.
Go ahead.
For bondmen and bondwomen.
So there is clearly telling you, one, who these people are, the people that were brought into slavery again with ships, and were sold unto their enemies for bondmen and bondwomen. So right here, clearly, Israel is being defined, or being shown who Israel is, and it's telling you the condition in which will befall them by being sold into bondage. Will be sold into slavery for bondmen and bondwomen. Go ahead, finish it off.
And no man shall buy you.
In this particular sense, in this context, buy, it means redeem, meaning nobody will save you, actually. No one's coming to rescue you. So, you can throw out that little, that whole thing about us being Africans, because I don't recall any African nation, going in front of the UN talking about you kidnapped our people. I don't hear any African nation talking about, you owe us some restitution for kidnapping, our brothers and sisters. I haven't read about it anywhere in history. You know why? Because we're not African. They're not our people. So that just wanted to, sidebar a little bit. Just wanted to get that out there. But clearly, the Bible describes who your enemy is, and it tells you never to put any trust in that enemy. You can't trust them for anything. You certainly can't trust them to be righteous or to give us some sort of justice. You can't trust them for the education of your children. You can't expect them to be fair and equal with the dispensation of justice, or with even their little perverted version of it is. And you certainly can't expect them to give you fair and equal treatment when they're fighting their own people for power, and you're caught in the middle thinking that you're going to get some sort of equal treatment or some sort of fair treatment. It's almost crazy. So in this situation, our only recourse is to come back to these laws, statutes, commandments. And just like that particular oppressor identified who his brother was, then we need to for certainly know who our brothers are. And that's only other Israelites which are identified in these scriptures. And with that, Israel, say shalom, pass the class over, priest and officer.
Excellent class by that brother. Give that brother a powerful hand. Give that priest officer a powerful hand. Give him a powerful hand. And that's the problem with us as Israel, We always think, well, we're gonna get the same things, or we are afforded the same things that our oppressor is afforded. You understand what I'm saying? We don't realize, we don't understand that we are slaves. We are the slaves in this land. You understand? And the only way we come up out of slavery is to come back to these laws, statutes, and commandments. You understand? Most High say, as long as we follow our oppressor, we're going to be the tail. Until we gather ourselves together on one accord, that's the only time that we're going to be the head. And that's when we can already see the oppressor's, his kingdom is already fallen. But we got to come together for our kingdom to build. You understand what I'm saying? With that, let's do the security announcements. Security announcements, we are the Isupk out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Your Honor. New rules for brothers and sisters. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. After that 6 month period, if a brother or sister of Salakia, let me go back. You must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There's another 6 months in which the brother or sister will court each other. After that 6 month period, the brother or sister will get permission from the head to marry, tithes, which is a commandment. You can find this in Numbers 18 and 21, Malachi 3, 8 to 10. It's pronounced, it means 10th in the Hebrew, and it's pronounced ma'ashera. 10th of every penny of any increase the Lord gives, you give to the Treasury Department or teacher. Priest fund, free will offering, not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like to give, up and coming holy convocation, with my Akim and Aquathium, to check on social media such as isupk.com. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and so on for Isupk events and material. If a brother wants to be a trooper in the school, then he is to start wearing all black, which includes black boots, shirts, pants, headband, or scarf. And with that, we're gonna give one courtesy salute to the teacher. Men of Israel, a Majum Shabbat, a Majum, Barak, Haba Shemi Haba Shabarakatah. Yajibata, class dismissed.
Trying to find something to follow, had loyalty, every man tried to borrow. Felt pain and a lot of sorrow, got betrayed, so packed, I didn't even have my heart broke. Living confused, about to lose hope. Cops got me on the side of the road, like a sideshow. Need an antidote before I croak. Now I'm setting fire, the rhythm man blues on this guitar smoke. Rebel with no cause, trying to find direction. The world got me vexed. Picked up a bad liquor habit that's already turned from oppression. Felt like my life was on fire, trying to find the exit. Now look, 10 G's busting to the break. Sometimes I follow it as a soldier, trying to find a good shepherd. Plus when you in hell, how do you excel? With them the breath of life, I believe in fairy tale. Listen well to what I tell, no calling.